That is not unusual in itself. Trail closures in national parks can run for years. Habitat restoration, geological instability, sensitive species protection. The signs go up and the bureaucratic process that would take them down never quite gets started, and the trail stays closed, and eventually the closure becomes part of the landscape and nobody questions it anymore. I have worked for the National Park Service for 19 years, and I have seen closures that outlasted the reasons for them by a decade. What is unusual about the closures I guard is that the reasons were never on the signs. The signs say closed, restoration in progress. They have said that since 1987. The restoration has not been in progress for 37 years. There is no restoration. There has never been a restoration plan filed with any office I have been able to find records for. The trails were closed because something happened on them in 1987, and the closure was the response, and the response has been maintained every year since by people who understood what they were maintaining, even when the people doing the maintaining changed. I am one of the people doing the maintaining now. I have been doing it for 14 months. My name is Victor Sell. I am 56 years old. I spent 16 years as a structural engineer for a firm that specialized in bridge assessment and repair on remote highway infrastructure in the American West. That work took me to places that most people never go and taught me to read physical structures for the information they carry, the load patterns, the stress fractures, the signs of strain that appear long before a failure, and that a trained eye can identify and quantify and document. I was good at reading what structures were telling me. I am good at reading what this posting is telling me. The skill transfers more directly than I expected. The closed trails I guard are in the northeastern interior of Yellowstone, a section of the park that sits between two major drainage systems, and that was, before 1987, a moderately used backcountry corridor, not heavily trafficked. Day hikers, the occasional overnight party, wildlife watchers in the spring and fall. The trails ran through open meadow and lodgepole timber, and a section of thermal ground near a small geyser basin that the Park Service maps had labeled as a minor feature. The maps still show the trails. They show them as closed. The closure symbols have been on those maps for 37 years. My posting is a patrol station at the southern access point of the closed trail network, a small building at the end of a service road that the public cannot access without a key that 3 people in the Park Service currently hold. I have one of those keys. My supervisor, a woman named Aldridge who runs the restricted interior division from an office in Mammoth, has one. The third key holder I have never met, and Aldridge has never named. I was given my operational guidelines on my first day in a sealed envelope that Aldridge handed me through her truck window before she drove away. She said read them before dark and follow them exactly, and that the guidelines would answer most of my questions, and that the questions they did not answer were not questions I needed answers to in order to do the job. She said this in the tone of someone who has said it before and has found it to be true. I read the guidelines. I'm going to tell you what they say and what 14 months of working by them has taught me about what they mean. There are 15 rules, more than any other posting I have read about in the restricted interior network, and I have read about most of them in the log books that previous guards left in the patrol station desk. 15 rules for a set of closed trails in the northeastern interior of Yellowstone. 15 rules that were written by someone who knew exactly what the trails needed and exactly what a human presence on them at night was required to do. Rule 1. The closed trail network covers 11 miles of trail divided into 4 sections. Section 1 runs north through open meadow. Section 2 enters the lodgepole timber. Section 3 crosses the thermal ground near the geyser basin. Section 4 returns south along the drainage. You will complete 1 full circuit of all 4 sections per shift. The circuit must be completed between 9 in the evening and 5 in the morning. You have 8 hours. The circuit takes approximately 4 hours at steady pace. Use the remaining time as you judge necessary for rest and equipment checks at the patrol station. Rule 2. The trails are closed because they are in use, not by the public, not by Park Service personnel, by something that has used this corridor for longer than the park has existed and longer than any human record of this area extends. The closure keeps the public off trails that are actively used by something that does not accommodate unexpected human presence well. Your presence on the trails at night is not unexpected. It is scheduled. The scheduling is what makes your presence safe. Do not deviate from your scheduled circuit. That second rule is unlike any rule I have read in any operational document in 19 years of federal work. It does not hedge. It does not use the language of geological instability or habitat sensitivity. It says the trails are in use, and it says what is using them does not accommodate unexpected presence, and it says the scheduling is what makes it safe. Someone who wrote those 3 sentences had moved past the stage of indirect language and had decided that the person reading them deserved to know what they were walking into. I have been grateful for that directness every night for 14 months. Rule 3. At each of the 4-section transition points marked with a green post, stop for 90 seconds. Face the direction of travel. Do not speak during the 90 seconds. Do not use your radio. At 90 seconds, resume walking. The stops are not rest breaks. Do not treat them as rest breaks. Stand upright, face forward, and hold the 90 seconds in full. The 90-second stops are the most demanding part of the circuit and not for physical reasons. Standing at a trail section transition in the northeastern interior of Yellowstone at 2 in the morning, facing forward into the dark, not speaking, not radioing, for 90 seconds is a specific kind of demanding that has nothing to do with physical exertion. It is demanding because the 90 seconds requires you to be entirely present in a place where presence has a different weight than it does in ordinary terrain. By the end of the 90 seconds every night I understand why the rule says do not treat it as a rest break. It is not rest, it is work of a different kind. Rule 4. Section 3. The thermal ground crossing must be completed between 1 and 2 in the morning. Do not enter Section 3 before 1 in the morning. Do not be in Section 3 after 2 in the morning. If your circuit timing places you at the Section 3 entry point before 1, wait at the green post marking the Section 2 to Section 3 transition. Do not enter early. The thermal ground section is the one that changed the most in 14 months of walking it. In my first weeks it was simply a section of trail crossing a geologically active area, the crust warm underfoot, the smell of sulfur, the small vents releasing steam at irregular intervals. By the third month it was something else. Not different in any way I can point to on a map or describe in engineering terms. Different in the way a room feels different when you understand what it has been used for. The thermal ground knows it is being crossed between 1 and 2 in the morning. I do not mean that metaphorically. The ground responds to the crossing in a way that ground does not normally respond to a person walking on it. It is the closest I have come in this posting to feeling that the accommodation the second rule describes is genuinely bilateral. I cross the thermal ground between 1 and 2 and something in the ground acknowledges the crossing. Rule 5. Do not leave the trail surface at any point during the circuit. The trails are maintained. The ground adjacent to them is not safe for a scheduled presence. You are safe on the trail because you are scheduled on the trail. You are not scheduled on the adjacent ground. Stepping off the trail is the same as arriving unscheduled. I tested the edges of Rule 5 once in my third week, stepping off the trail into the meadow grass by about 18 inches to walk around a patch of mud. Not a significant deviation, 18 inches. The change in the night around me was immediate and specific, and I stepped back onto the trail surface in under 2 seconds. The change reversed within about 30 seconds of my return to the trail. I have not stepped off the trail since. 18 inches was enough to understand what the rule meant by unscheduled. Rule 6. If you find the trail has been altered, a section damaged, a marker removed, significant debris on the surface, note the location and the nature of the alteration in your log and continue your circuit. Do not investigate the alteration. Do not attempt to repair it during your shift. Report it to dispatch at the next scheduled radio check and maintenance will be arranged. The trails are repaired during daylight hours only. I have logged trail alterations on 31 occasions in 14 months. Debris on the trail surface, mostly in Section 2 where the timber is dense. Marker posts displaced or knocked over, most frequently the Section 3 entry green post. On 2 occasions sections of the trail surface itself had changed, a widening of the packed dirt path that was not there on the previous night, as if the trail had been used by something larger than usual and the surface had accommodated the use. I logged both widenings in precise measurements and reported them at the next radio check. Aldridge said, "Copy noted, maintenance will assess." The trail's surface was back to its original width by the following night. I did not ask how. Rule 7. Radio checks occur at 10 in the evening, 2 in the morning, and 4 in the morning on Channel 8. The daily code phrase is broadcast at 8:50 each evening. If dispatch uses a code phrase that does not match today's phrase, do not respond. Turn the radio face down on the desk and do not touch it until your next scheduled check. Do not attempt to reach dispatch on any other channel during this period. If the face-down period extends past a scheduled check, wait for dispatch to re-establish contact before resuming normal communication. The code phrases at this posting are 2-word combinations that have a specific character I noticed after about 6 weeks. They are all geological: fault line, ash flow, cinder cone, lava field, drift plain. Someone chose these phrases from the vocabulary of geological processes, and I believe the choosing was deliberate in the same way that the second rule's directness was deliberate. The phrases are honest about what they are adjacent to. I confirm them each check and find something in the confirming that feels like the right language for the right place. Rule 8. Do not acknowledge sounds from off the trail that resemble human voices. Sounds from off the trail during the circuit may include tones, patterns, and at certain intervals what will seem to be speech. Log the direction, the duration, and a physical description of the sound. Do not respond verbally. Do not alter your route toward or away from the source. Continue your circuit. The sounds from off the trail are most frequent in Section 2, in the lodgepole timber where the visibility is shortest. They are not voices. I have spent 14 months being precise about that distinction. They are sounds that activate the speech recognition that the human brain is built to apply to ambiguous acoustic input. The timber at night produces complex sound environments, and the brain searches those environments for pattern, and sometimes finds pattern that resembles speech because speech is what the brain most wants to find. I log them as tonal or rhythmic or patterned, and I continue my circuit. What I cannot account for by that explanation is the 3 occasions on which the sounds used my name. Tonal, rhythmic, patterned sounds do not use names. I logged those 3 occasions separately, noted the section, the time, the duration, and the fact that the sound used my name. I noted it in the same flat language I use for everything else in the log. First name once, duration approximately 4 seconds, direction east, Section 2 timber, no response made. That is all I wrote. Aldridge has not commented on those entries. Rule 9. The geyser basin adjacent to Section 3 is active. Eruption intervals are irregular and not predictable. Do not approach the basin edge at any time during the circuit. The trail does not require approach to the basin edge. Stay on the trail and the basin edge is not accessible. This rule exists because the basin edge is one of the locations in the patrol zone where the scheduled presence protection does not extend. The trail is scheduled. The basin edge is not part of the trail. Rule 10. If you encounter another person on the closed trail network, stop at 20 yards. Ask them to state their name, their agency affiliation, and the purpose of their presence. Do not approach within 20 yards until all 3 have been confirmed verbally and by radio with dispatch. If they cannot provide all 3, or if dispatch cannot confirm them, maintain 20 yards and radio immediately. Do not turn your back on an unconfirmed person on the closed trail network. I have encountered other people on the closed trail network on 2 occasions. The first was in my 2nd month. A man in Park Service uniform at the Section 2 to Section 3 transition point. He gave his name and affiliation and purpose without hesitation. Dispatch confirmed all 3 within 90 seconds. He was a maintenance technician checking the Section 3 trail markers. I stood at 20 yards until dispatch confirmed, and then we spoke briefly, and he continued his work, and I continued my circuit. The second encounter was in my 9th month, and dispatch could not confirm the individual. I maintained 20 yards and radioed, and the individual stood at the Section 1 meadow entry point for 11 minutes before walking back down the service road in the direction of the public access point. Dispatch told me afterward that no unauthorized personnel had been logged accessing the service road that night. I noted the encounter in the log. Unconfirmed individual, Section 1 entry, 11 minutes, departed south, could not be confirmed by dispatch. I have not seen that individual since. Rule 11. Between 3 in the morning and 3:30 in the morning, complete your circuit at the patrol station. Do not be on the trail between 3 and 3:30. This is the window during which the trail network has the highest level of use by the thing that uses it, and during which the scheduling protection that makes your circuit safe is suspended. Return to the patrol station before 3 and remain inside until 3:30. Resume your circuit at 3:30 if you have not completed it. Do not attempt to observe the trail network through the patrol station windows during this window. Face away from the windows. The 3 to 3:30 window is the rule that tells you the most about the scale of what you are sharing the trail network with. Your entire circuit, your scheduled presence, the 90-second stops, the Section 3 timing, all of it is designed around this window the way the rest of a structure is designed around its load-bearing elements. Everything serves the window. Everything protects you from being on the trail during the 30 minutes when the protection does not apply. On active nights, I can hear, from inside the patrol station with my back to the windows, the sound of the trail network being used at a scale that my 4-hour circuit does not approach. I face away from the windows. I wait for 3:30. Rule 12. At the end of each shift, walk to the Section 1 entry green post, which is 30 yards north of the patrol station. Place both hands on the post for a count of 40. Remove your hands, walk back to the patrol station. This is the closing of the circuit in the same way that the start of your patrol opens it. The 40 count is the minimum. Hold it until it feels complete. The end of shift post contact is the part of every night that I think about most during the day. 40 seconds with both hands on a green metal post at the entry to a trail network that something has been using since before the park existed. The post is always cold, not ambient cold, the cold of something that maintains its own temperature independent of the conditions around it. On the most active nights, the cold is deeper and the 40 count requires more of me than the count itself should require. I hold it until it feels complete. Some nights complete arrives at 40, some nights it takes longer. The longest was 91 seconds on a February night, when the 3 to 3:30 window had been the most active I had experienced to that point, and the cold coming up through the post was working its way into my palms in a way I felt for 2 hours afterward. I found the First Amendment on my 29th shift, inside the back cover of the oldest logbook on the desk shelf, folded and unsealed. It said the trails were closed in 1987 because a party of 4 hikers encountered the trail network during the 3 to 3:30 window, and 2 of them did not leave the park in any documented sense, and the other 2 were found at the Section 1 trailhead the following morning and were not able to provide coherent accounts of what they had encountered. The closure was implemented within 48 hours. The patrol was established within 2 weeks. The 2 survivors were interviewed extensively. Their accounts were not consistent with each other or with any framework the investigators were working from. What the accounts shared was a description of scale. Both survivors used the word scale independently when describing what they had seen on the trail between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. They could not describe the thing itself. They could describe the scale of it. The investigators noted that both survivors demonstrated significant distress when asked to elaborate on the scale description, and the line of questioning was discontinued. The patrol was established on the understanding that a scheduled human presence operating within defined parameters was preferable to an unscheduled public presence operating without any parameters at all. I read that amendment 4 times the first night I found it. I thought about the second rule, the one that said the trails were in use and that the thing using them did not accommodate unexpected presence well. I thought about the word scale used by 2 people independently who could not describe anything else about what they had seen. I have not tried to imagine the scale. I have found that the work is better done without that imagination, and the amendment seems to have been written with the same understanding. It tells you enough to do the job. It does not tell you more than that. The Second Amendment came on my 71st shift in an envelope taped to the underside of the patrol station desk. It said the 90-second stops at the section transition points are not for you. They are acknowledgments made on behalf of the human presence that the scheduled circuit represents. The thing that uses these trails does not require your acknowledgement personally. It requires the acknowledgement of a human presence operating within the agreed parameters. The stops are the agreed parameters for acknowledgement. You are not stopping because you personally have something to communicate. You are stopping because the schedule requires a stop, and the schedule is the agreement, and the agreement is what keeps you safe on the trail. This is also why the code phrase recitation works when the compulsion to leave the trail arises. The recitation is not about the words, it is about a human voice operating within the parameters at the moment the parameters are most needed. The voice in the parameters is the signal is the safety. I have thought about that amendment more than anything else I have been given in this posting. The idea that I am not personally relevant to what happens on this trail. That I am relevant as a scheduled human presence operating within agreed parameters. That the agreement is between the Park Service and something that has been using this corridor since before the park existed, and that the agreement's terms are the circuit and the stops and the timing and the window and the post contact at the end of the night. I am not guarding these trails from the public to protect the public from what uses the trails. I am guarding them from the public to protect the agreement. The agreement is what protects everyone. Aldridge told me something on the one occasion she visited the posting, in my 6th month, driving up the service road at 7 in the morning to drop off resupply. She stood in the patrol station doorway and looked at the logbooks on the shelf and said, "You are the longest serving guard at this station since 2019. The one before you lasted 4 months. The one before that lasted 9. I asked what happened to them. She said one requested a transfer and one just stopped coming in. I asked why. She said some people cannot work within a system they do not fully understand. You can. That is why you are still here. I am still here because the work makes sense to me in the way that structural engineering made sense to me. A system with load-bearing elements and tolerances and parameters within which it functions and outside of which it fails. The agreement is the structure. The circuit is the load-bearing element. The window is the tolerance limit. I work within the parameters and the structure holds. The closure signs have said restoration in progress since 1987. The restoration is the circuit. The circuit is what is being maintained. Every night that a scheduled human presence walks those 11 miles in sequence, stops at the transition points for 90 seconds, crosses the thermal ground between 1 and 2, stays off the trail between 3 and 3:30, and puts both hands on the green post for a count of 40 at the end, the restoration is in progress. I have 2 months left at this posting. I will walk every remaining circuit the same way I have walked every circuit for 14 months. The thermal ground between 1 and 2, the 90-second stops, the window inside with my back to the windows. And at the end of every shift, I will walk to the green post and I will put both hands on it and I will hold the count until it feels complete and the cold will work into my palms and I will stand there on the entry to a trail network that something enormous has been using since before anyone alive today was born, and I will honor the agreement for one more night. The closure signs will still say restoration in progress in the morning. They are not wrong. Brand new narrator, Victor Cell, 56, structural engineer background, Northeastern Yellowstone Trail Network, agreement framework as the core supernatural logic, scale as the partial revelation, 3 to 3:30 window as the most dangerous period, 2 amendment sheets, green post contact as end of shift protocol, section 3 thermal ground as the key crossing, code phrases drawn from. Geological vocabulary, plain grounded language throughout, full template structure followed, clean and ready for your voice generator, ready for the next one whenever you are.